So
Let me
here
just
it
turn
comes.
that on.
Here it comes.
Also, I'm muting everyone. Okay, so we're recording this meeting. I'm just going to share my screen for 1 second so that you can all see the interpretation instructions in various languages. Essentially, you should be able to go at the bottom of the screen if you need interpretation services to that little globe circle icon with the lines in it and pick the language that you want to hear interpretation in. So I'm just going to go down the list right now of each language and just have the interpreters quickly introduce themselves. So we'll start with Mandarin.
大家好，我叫高慧。今天晚上呢，很高兴能为大家服务。Hello everyone, my name is Hui. I'm the Mandarin interpreter. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Haitian Creole, if you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Bonsoir à tout le monde qui est là. My name is Samuel Malis, non pas M. Samuel Malis, c'est mon cap interprète pour créole haïtien, pour interprétation créole haïtien. Allez dans contrôle bas qui est dans la partie écran et puis cliquez sur interprétation. Après ça, cliquez sur langue que vous avez m'entendez à Kounia ou bien accès à réunion en créole haïtien et qu'on soit moi-même cap interprète. Merci, bienvenue dans la réunion.
Great, thank you. And then can the Cantonese interpreter unmute themselves?
大家好，咁今日咧係為大家翻譯廣東話。咁如果大家係需要粵語翻譯咧，咁請你喺你屏幕下邊點擊語言，咁挑選廣東話，大家咧就可以挑選廣東話翻譯噶啦。多謝 ，Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Vietnamese interpreter.
Good evening. My name is Yuen Diu. I'm Vietnamese interpreter for the meeting tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cabo Verdean Creole.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Vanusa. I'll be the Cabo Verdean Creole interpreter tonight. Oi, boa tarde. Então, sirvo como intérprete para o crioulo de Cabo Verde. Quase você entra na reunião na crioulo e para poder ouvir na crioulo, vai naquela barra de controle que fica horizontal na parte inferior do computador. Você calca na interpretation, que é para interpretação. Depois você calca no idioma que você quer. Então, pode calcar na Cabo Verdean Creole e já você ouve que reunião na crioulo. Thank you.
Okay, and then finally in Spanish.
Hi everyone, my name is Erika Pérez. I'll be the Spanish interpreter. Para las personas que quieren escuchar esta reunión en español, si están utilizando su computador, en la parte de abajo está como un globito la parte de reacciones. Escojan ahí y asegúrense de escoger español, que hay como 6 idiomas al día de hoy. Si están utilizando su celular, hay 3 puntitos en la parte derecha de abajo. Busquen interpretación de idiomas y escojan español y finalizado. Gracias. All set.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So, one moment. Okay, can everyone hear me? Yes, great. Okay, so very quickly, this meeting is being recorded. If you didn't hear that already, we have ASL interpretation on the screen. As you can see, we also have closed captioning that you can turn on. And finally, just a reminder for everyone to speak slowly, please, so that interpretation can happen smoothly. So I will kick it off to you, Chief.
Thank you, Gabby. And we have a couple of folks trying to join the call as well, so we can keep admitting them into the call. Buenas tardes, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking an hour and a half of your evening. We've been working really hard to ensure that not only are we ensuring that we can get every resident from point A to point B during the Orange Line shutdown, but we are also doing our best to get the information out into our communities. And before I hand it off to our guest of honor, who will be here for a couple of minutes talking to all of us, I want to just name a couple of the goals for tonight's conversation. It will be really lecture heavy for the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but then after that, we actually want to open it up for a conversation, questions, recommendations from the different residents here. But first is, we just want to get the information to you all. Goal number 2, ask that you help us get that information out into the community with your neighbors, your anybody who you connect with. And then number 3, to get your input. This has been really fast. And while we're working really hard to do our best to get this out there and in the best quality as possible, we know that we need you in order to best implement this wonderful transformation of our beautiful Orange Line that we are looking forward to. So right now I have Mayor Wu on the line who wants to say a few words to the residents in the call to kick us off. Mayor Wu.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Chief, and thank you to all of our interpreters and all of you city staff and community leaders for joining us to help share some information and feedback. I actually think our guest of honor is Angel today, who has been our guest of honor at many, many events lately, representing the MBTA and ensuring that our communities have direct access to information and all of the latest updates. What I want to say to everyone is first that I'm so grateful for your partnership in this. It is already always a complicated situation when we are talking about changes to people's daily routines and schedules, but this scale of disruption and this length of time is going to be very significant. And so we really need your help in spreading the word about all of the alternatives that the MBTA and the City of Boston have been working really hard to provide in the meantime. I wish we weren't here, but it has been decades and decades of getting to this point of needing to have big fixes. And I think anyone who rides the T on a regular basis, like me and so many of our commuters, recognize that it will be better to get this all done in one stretch, and so that we can feel safe and have the reliable service that we deserve after these improvements and fixes are made. So thank you so much to all the team. I know the city from the streets side and the staff working on bus lanes and changing around the shuttle bus stops so that everyone can load easily, to our equity and inclusion team helping to think about multilingual outreach and support the MBTA on how to connect with all of our residents in multiple languages through you all as well, to our community engagement team who have been and will continue hitting the streets to facilitate the direct connections and passing out flyers that the city has produced and providing those materials. A couple of things I want to emphasize, and again, Angel's going to get into a lot more detail, but everyone who takes the T, everyone who usually rides the Orange Line is guaranteed a way to get to where they need to go. So it's not as if this is being shut down and you just have to figure it out for 4 weeks. There is a whole very frequent shuttle bus system that will be replacing most of the stops directly, as well as increased service on the Orange Line. Sorry, I wish. Increased service, that is to come in a couple of weeks. Increased service on the Silver Line to accommodate some of the other stops that are downtown, and free commuter rail for anyone who is getting on one of the stations in Boston. I keep saying that is probably your best bet, is to find a way to get either from Forest Hills or Ruggles to Back Bay or South Station if you're usually trying to get most of the way on the Orange Line downtown from the south, and similarly other stations from the north into Boston as well. So thank you so much to everyone for your time and for helping us spread the word. I know we are just a couple days away, and could use all your help in making sure people are ready, prepared, and know about the options that are available. And the other point I want to make that I keep trying to say everywhere is that we want to be able to convey that feedback and make changes in real time, day by day as we go. So because this is new schedules, new routines for everyone, new ways of moving on our streets, we want to be adjusting things that aren't working. And so if you let the city know, day 1, day 2, we hope to be able to incorporate that feedback and make it even better immediately as this goes on for 30 days. And so then by the end, we will be all used to it and set, and then we'll have a great, wonderful Orange Line back. So thank you so much. And oh, yes, I want to lift up in the chat as well, and free blue bikes on the bike share system as well. And so I've been joining some of my neighbors and riding downtown on a bike, and it's been a great way to get exercise and takes about the same amount of time anyway. So we will continue to try to lift that up as an option and make that safer and safer for everyone too. But thank you so much, everyone. It's great to see you tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. All right, for our real guest of honor, as Mayor Wu said, I'll kick it off in just a second to the Deputy Chief of Staff, Angel Donahue Rodriguez from the MBTA, to really get us a sense of like what is going on. Before that, I just want to share a little bit who's in the room. This call was possible in partnership with the MBTA, with the Boston Transportation Department. And if folks can mute yourselves as you're coming in, it will be helpful to make sure that everybody can hear us, as well as the Office of Neighborhood Services. We understand that you've been needing and asking for help, and so we just wanted to do a first attempt at getting the information out there, but this is not where it's going to stop. And so please work with us today as you give us these questions and recommendations. We are taking note, and we will be following up. As Mayor said, we're taking the feedback and continuing to implement whatever is best for community. So, Angel, if you can do a quick introduction and then walk us through what is this shutdown, why is it happening, why is it happening now, and what is the state doing to ensure that we are supporting our residents from point A to point B?
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to provide this critical information to the residents of the city of Boston. As a fellow Bostonian, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I ride the T every single day, as does my family, and I really appreciate the opportunity to help our community understand what it is that we're trying to achieve. This closure is going to be for the entire Orange Line, from Forest Hills all the way to Oak Grove, for a period of 30 days beginning on August 19th, which is this Friday at 9 p.m. through September 18th, and service resuming on September 19th. When this work is complete, the MBTA, we believe that we will be able to provide our riders in the community a more safer, reliable MBTA. And we believe that by the time the work is complete, the majority of the trains that are going to be used on the Orange Line will be new trains, which will increase reliability, and it will remove some of the speed restrictions that we have in the system on the Orange Line, in particular around the south side of the Orange Line, in and around Tufts, in the Tufts area. I also want to mention that although we're closing the Orange Line, there's also a closure on the Green Line that is going to be happening concurrently during this closure, so folks need to be mindful of that. The reason we are undertaking this work is that the system we need drastic change. We've heard that from our riders. We've heard that from many elected officials, including Mayor Wu, that we need drastic change. And so this is an unprecedented step, certainly is, and we are responding in kind and to ensure that we're providing the most reliable service at the end of this closure. Now, what does this mean for riders, besides the fact that you'll end up having more reliable and faster and better service for folks? During this closure, we're going to be replacing 3,500 feet of track, which will enable the Orange Line to be faster and safer. We will also be installing new signaling equipment, taking it from analog to digital, which will improve the operations and the reliability of the Orange Line. But more importantly, during the closure, which is why I think, which is why the majority of the people here today is, what do people need to do to plan ahead? And we really do want to encourage people to plan ahead. There are several tools that we've been working with, as an organization and working with municipalities and other stakeholders to provide people with the means necessary to be able to get to where they need to go, whether it's doctor's appointments or getting to school. So we highly encourage folks to go on mbta.com. That will be the sole source of truth for everything that's related to this diversion. I cannot emphasize that enough. mbta.com will have all the information that you need. Now, in the website, there will be several tools that will be available to folks. And one that I want to point out is the MBTA's planner, the rider tool, the trip planner tool. Using that tool, someone can simply just put their information about where they're at and where they'd like to go. And then the system will put out the information that's necessary to get you to where you need to go based on the transit options. What other alternatives are we going to be providing? We're going to be providing increased and enhanced commuter rail options, particularly on the south side of the system. Simply go and show your Charlie card or Charlie ticket at any of the stations up to Zone 2, and you'll be able to get into the city. And that is the #1 option that we're highly recommending folks to take. Use the commuter rail in order to be able to get into the city. It is the easiest way to be able to get in. The shuttles that we will be providing will be fully handicap accessible. In addition to that, throughout the entire service area, we will be providing what we call shuttle. We will be providing disability shuttles. Simply, the way that someone could access that is by going to someone in a red coat, a team ambassador, that can then assist you with any help that someone may need. Simply go up, say you need a shuttle, and if someone will radio that in, and they'll be in circulation throughout the closure for the 30 days. As I mentioned, the shuttles are going to be accessible. I would also mention that the ride along the Orange Line, any trips originating within 3/4 of a mile will be free for the duration of the 30 days. So that's something I want to emphasize. We're also, as the mayor mentioned before, in the city, and thank you for the city working on this. There will be free blue bike passes for the 30 days that this closure happens. And again, we really appreciate people's patience throughout this difficult work that we need to undertake. We feel confident that we'll be able to do this within the 30 days. And our teams are hard at work to ensure that we are doing what we need to do. There will be additional staff on all of the stations to assist riders throughout their journey. We will also be having a call center. And again, I would urge folks that you can get that information on going to mbta.com and download the rider guide. And the other thing that I want folks to know is that we really do need your help in amplifying this message to get to as many people as possible. We really want to get this message out so that people from all, whether it's the disability community, people that speak different languages, have the information at their hands to make the best choices that they need in order for them to be able to get to work. And so we are going to be here to listen and to work with our partners at the municipal, state, and federal level. And thank you to the city for hosting this meeting today. And Chief, I'll turn it over to you about the next steps and going into dialogue before we open up for questions.
Thank you, Angel. And folks, if you can keep adding your questions or comments in the chat, I should have said that at the beginning. I've been taking notes so that when we engage in a Q&A, I can address some of these questions or concerns with Angel. Kirsty from Boston Transportation Department, can you add a little bit more around what are the different interventions that as a city we are focusing on to ensure that we're helping our residents get to point A to B, C, and D?
Absolutely. So hi, everybody. My name is Kirsty Hostetter. I work on the transit team at the Boston Transportation Department. So we are doing our best to partner with Angel and others at the MBTA to make this as smooth as possible, acknowledging that an entirely smooth trip for folks who usually use the Orange Line won't be possible under these circumstances. So there are a couple of things in particular that we're doing. We are working with our partners at MBTA and across city departments to look at where we can make changes to our streets in order to help the shuttles move more efficiently and more safely. So in some areas that will be pop-up bus lanes, and other areas that's just having folks make sure that the shuttle buses are able to make the really wide turns that they have to make. These are much larger buses than our traditional cars. And as you can see from where the Orange Line runs, some of those streets are kind of tiny. So we're working with the MBTA on those. We'll have more information coming out in the coming days about exactly where those efforts are being concentrated. We also, as mentioned, have worked with Blue Bikes to have the free 30-day pass that's available to anybody in the entire region. You can sign up for a free 30 days of Blue Bikes. We're adding Blue Bikes, like the physical bikes, to our system to make sure everybody can have access to a bike. And we're working on locations where you can have a guaranteed access to a bike and to a dock in order to drop the bike off. So biking will be a good option for folks. We're working with our municipal partners to the north as well to come up with walking and biking guides for those who choose to bike or to walk instead between different destinations. We're also working to have wayfinding on the ground for people. So basically signage that helps people understand how to get between the southern shuttle loop and the northern shuttle loop. So the southern shuttle loop will run, according to MBTA, from Forest Hills to Back Bay Station and Copley Center. And the northern loop will run from Oak Grove to State Street / Government Center for the Orange Line. The Green Line Shutdown loop will also will go between Union Square and Government Center. Between those two, MBTA is asking that folks use the Green Line to get around. But we know that there will be people who don't know this is happening, who don't want to get on the Green Line. And so we will have information available on the streets, on signs, to help people navigate, whether it's between Chinatown Station and Boylston Station, between Downtown Crossing and Park Street, or if somebody wants to choose to walk from Copley to Government Center. So that's an overview of some of the things that we've done to help support. We've also produced a one-pager that explains all of the options available to people for traveling. If you go to boston.gov/Orange Line, you'll find them. It's available in 11 languages. For folks, we are also working closely with our Disabilities Commission in order to come out with some specific materials around people who have access concerns, mobility concerns, so that there's more detailed information for folks who might want to look into that.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. Okay, what I want to do for the next 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes is already in the chat. We've been asked, I've been writing them down. I have about 10 questions. 4 of them I feel like are pretty quick to answer. So let's go there immediately. Then I'm going to have a back and forth with Angel, with everybody here present. We asked a couple of departments that have direct contact to residents to come up with a list of questions that they've been hearing from people. And we've bucketed them, given some of the concerns that people have had. And then I promise we will open to sort of like an actual dialogue. I'll ask people to raise their hands, etc. But I do ask, we're trying our best to get all your questions and actually answering them. If you could do your best to actually like be listening in so that we don't have to continue to repeat ourselves. I know there's a lot of different information that we're throwing at you right now. I'm gonna ask City of Boston staff and the MBTA staff to continue to share some of the different links that we are talking about. For example, one question that I've seen come up a couple of times is, what is the link for the Blue Bike app? In order for me to get a free Blue Bike, can someone please drop the direct link so that I can log on and find the app on my phone? That was one of the first questions that I want to make sure we're answering. There is an app that you can actually just log on, and we're asking you to please choose the monthly subscription. Starting on Friday night, you will have access to a free pass for the entire month. Another question that I have seen come up in the chat a couple of times is around public safety. I will say today we're not able to share as much information on that as we want to be able to, but please know that between BPS, Boston Police Department, our senior advisor on public safety, and several other departments, those conversations are happening so that we can actually come back to families in particular with children in BPS with an actual plan of what we're doing to support this. If today you have recommendations, please drop them in the chat, or maybe when we open up at the end, please share those with us, because those conversations are happening, and a few staff present today are going to be in those conversations as well. So it'll be really helpful for you to give us some of that input. Another question that came up, Angel, you shared a call center. What is the number to that call center so that the people in the call today, once they have those questions and comments, they can start calling immediately? Do we have that number yet?
Yeah, I have the number. I'm going to put it on the chat for the call center.
Okay.
Also, sorry to interrupt, just want to remind folks, everyone who's speaking at any time, please make sure to speak slowly so the interpreters can follow along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabby. All right. Angel, let me know when the number is up so we can read it out loud. Thank you. Another question that came up is, and I'm going to ask John Romano, perhaps from ONS, to answer this, is around Chinatown. I know that tomorrow there's going to be an actual conversation in Chinatown to address the concerns there. John, do you mind saying a little bit more information on the conversation that's going to happen tomorrow in Chinatown?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. Tomorrow night, we'll be having a meeting in Chinatown. It will be at the Josiah Quincy Elementary School. I'm happy to get anyone the information if they don't know where that is. Just feel free to send me an email. I'll also make sure the link is posted in the chat. It'll be tomorrow night from 6 to 8:30, where you can learn more about the specific impacts from the shutdown to the Chinatown community, the Chinatown area. So we're happy to answer questions. If you have questions for that, happy to answer them either here and now or to be able to save them for tomorrow too. Thank you, Chief.
No, thank you, John.
I have that on the chat for you.
Perfect. And I'm going to read the number out loud for those of you who asked about the call center. The number is 617-222-3200. I'll say it one more time, a little faster. 617-222-3200. Okay, and I'll read one more question that came up a couple of times that potentially has a fast answer, not satisfactory. I'm not saying satisfactory, I'm saying fast answer. And we heard this question earlier today at another conversation around, will these different interventions have an impact on different routes throughout the city? Somebody is concerned that buses are going to be moved from one route to supply for the Orange Line. Angel, can you talk a little bit about this?
I'm happy to clarify that, Chief. So just to be clear, throughout the entire diversion, the MBTA has worked on having almost every available bus that we could possibly find east of the Mississippi, from what we've been told. And so we are using a private carrier to do this. We are not using MBTA buses. So I just want folks to be clear that to the extent that there is any impact on buses, it would be potentially through traffic or normal causes, not because they've been pulled out of the routes. We're using an external party for this.
Thank you, Angel. Yeah. All right, there's a lot more questions in the chat. I'm doing my best to keep track of them. And then for those quick ones, I'm trying just to get them out of the way for now. Okay, Angel, I'm gonna ask you a series of sort of just like big picture questions that came to us from, different one-on-one conversations with residents. And I'm going to start with the one that's actually being asked the most in the chat around how are we supporting our differently able residents in the city, people with different abilities, whether that's people who are using wheelchairs, etc. And so can you talk a little bit more about what the actual services are going to be like if I am somebody who either the charter bus is not going to work for me, or somebody that needs extra support in the transportation?
Yeah, thank you for that. So the first thing I would say is that we are going to have approximately 20 accessibility vans that are going to be wheelchair accessible and will help supplement the already accessible coach buses that are going to be out at throughout the diversion route. And as I mentioned earlier, just to emphasize, they're upon request. So simply go to one of the MBTA ambassadors that's wearing red. You will be seeing them in force throughout all the area in the diversion. Go up to them, and upon request, they will radio in on the ability to be able to have access an accessibility van. The other thing that I would mention here is We are doing, there's a lot of efforts, as you know, Chief, that we're working on ensuring access to different languages. So the MBTA website can actually be translated into various different languages by simply clicking the button at the top right that says English, and you can scroll down and find different languages. So that is another accessibility option. And then the other thing for folks to keep in mind, and this could be a little bit more, I guess, not cumbersome, but it could take a little bit longer, is that if you do have those additional accessibility needs and you need to apply for the ride, we encourage you to do that. And we will do our best to make sure that we can work to give you that accessibility. And again, I would encourage folks that if you are having issues, to just simply go up to an transit ambassador throughout the diversion routes, and they should be able to help and assist you.
Thank you. And we also have our Commissioner of the Disabilities office here in the city of Boston. Commissioner McCosh is in the call right now. Commissioner McCosh, if you would like to come off mute and say a few words, please do so. If not, make sure that you are continuing to engage in the chat. I've seen a couple of your messages, but I'll give it a couple of seconds to see if you want to say a few words about the work that you've been doing directly with the MBTA.
Yes, I'll just add a few things. Thank you, Chief. So my office is working very closely with our external partners at the T. That is the Office of System-Wide Accessibility. They oversee all the access on the fixed route, which is subways, buses, ferries, and we also work closely with the ride. As Angel mentioned, people who are on the ride can continue to take the ride. If you're not currently a ride passenger or customer, you can sign up to take the ride. But we will be working closely to keep up with the latest information. So I would encourage people to check boston.gov/orange line. There's a whole section on accessibility that we uploaded. And if you don't, if you're not connected with our office, you can reach us at disability@boston.gov. And we have a newsletter, and weekly email newsletter people can sign up for. And we'll be sending out the latest information on the newsletter. So please stay in touch. We can put these addresses in the chat, but I'm available for any other questions too. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner McCosh. Okay, I'm going to move us to a different bucket of conversation of questions that we received before, and that is on the ground support during the month shutdown, right? We've been hearing this concept of transit ambassadors, etc. Like if I am on the Orange, let's say I didn't hear any of this, I have no idea what's going on. I show up to Forest Hills. Yeah. What kinds of supports can we get that day in that moment?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chief. Cannot emphasize enough, as I said this before, there will be plenty of red shirt individuals, team ambassadors that will be there to assist people and that are able to answer questions and triage any particular issues. To the extent that they can provide language access, we will try. And if not, we will do our best to be able to try and accommodate. But those team ambassadors are going to be the critical people on the ground, in addition to working with other partners such as yourselves in your office in the city of Boston. In addition, livable streets that are going to be putting people out on the street to help guide people throughout the diversion. I would also emphasize a point that I made earlier, which is to plan ahead to the extent that you can. The transit ambassadors are obviously are going to be a huge part of helping coordinate this on the ground. But to the extent that people can, we highly encourage people to use the trip planner and to plan ahead before they come into town, so to know that how they best can circumvent the diversion. Again, please bear in mind that the shuttle buses should be your last resort, because there's going to be an enormous amount, a huge amount of buses in going through the area. There is going to be a significant uptick in traffic, and so travel times will be slow. So that will be the slowest option for you to be able to get into town, which is why we're encouraging folks to use the commuter rail as their #1 option.
Thank you, Angel. And just a reminder to myself and others speaking to try to go a little bit slower so that our interpreters have the right information. The next similar bucket of questions around the commuter rail. For those of us who perhaps have never taken the commuter rail or who are not as familiar, can you walk us through, one, what does that mean for me right now if I'm not a commuter rail user? And also, particularly thinking about which ones can I access, which stations for the commuter rail can I access during this shutdown?
That's a great question, Chief. So as Mayor Wu alluded to earlier, having a Charlie card or a Charlie ticket, you can just simply show that to the conductor when you get onto the train, and you're able to board and be able to get into the location where you need to go. The areas where there are Orange Line connections on the Orange Line are as follows: Forest Hills, Ruggles, Back Bay, North Station, Malden Center, and Oak Grove. There will be some increased traffic in trains and frequency on the south side as it particularly from the Forest Hills section getting into Ruggles. So there will be some increase in frequency on those trains. So that's why we're highly encouraging folks to use the commuter rail as their number one option. Once you access one of these stations, there will be ambassadors on hand to help people, to assist people as needed. Once you get on board and a conductor approaches, just simply flash your card or your Charlie ticket and you'll be on your way to get into town.
Thank you, Angel. Do you mind repeating which specific stations people can hop on a commuter rail?
I'm going to run through the whole list. So these are the following connector Orange Line stations: Forest Hills, Ruggles, Back Bay, North Station, Malden Center, and Oak Grove.
Angel, do you mind going them a little bit slower this time? Just to make sure that we're able to spell them out correctly for folks.
Yep. Forest Hills, Ruggles, Back Bay, North Station, Malden Center, and Oak Grove. And those schedules are posted and they're part of the MBTA Rider Guide that is on our website.
Thank you, Angel. Okay, I'm gonna move us on. I have two more buckets of questions and then I'll open it up for questions from the public. On outreach, like general outreach to the public so far, I know that today is part of this outreach.
Yep.
And we are asking the residents in this call to help us continue moving that information forward. And I know that we also have our Office of Neighborhood Services doing some really good work starting this weekend, or actually has already started, but this weekend in particular, they're going to be in some of the different stations supporting people. What has been the outreach so far, and what are some next steps to continue the outreach, particularly for folks that are not on social media already actively looking at this information?
Okay. If you're not on social media, there will be
咁我哋係會有呢個即係話我哋係會有呢個宣傳嘅，同埋我哋係會
locales y también ayer
Thank you la información.
他会就是
a car or coming in, if they're coming
Nhiều machine serving la ville.
Về rất là nhiều cái cách khác nhau để giúp cho khách
that engagement throughout the diversion, whether it's putting posters at different stations so that people can see them, or using digital signs at all our MBTA, or as many of our MBTA sites, whether it's billboards, in-station digital signage. And as you alluded, Chief, there will be a significant presence on social media, reminding folks that this diversion is happening. In addition to that, one of the things and one of the reasons that we're here today is that we really do want folks that are here to emphasize this message to reach as many people as possible. We will be at a meeting tomorrow, as you said, in Chinatown to walk through the diversion there. And we will continue to do these types of conversations throughout the duration of the closure.
Okay, and this last question, Angel, I know you don't like this last question, but folks have been asking, they're curious, they're scared. Is this really going to take only 1 month?
Yes, but we're confident that we have the materials on hand to do it. The team, the expertise, the teams have been working diligently both external and internal forces to ensure that we're able to accomplish this within those 30 days.
Okay, so we're gonna attempt to do this just for your awareness. We have 260 people on the call right now, so we're going to do our best to moderate the different questions that are on. Right now, I'm gonna focus, instead of my attention on the chat box, I'm gonna focus on folks that raised their hand on their screen. I will then call in order the different people that are raising their hands. Please come off mute at that moment. Ask your question. We're asking you to please keep it as brief as possible. And if there is a recommendation or a concern that you need us to hear and document, please use the time to also do that. The only reason I'm asking you to be brief is because we have 260 people and we want to make sure that we're getting in as many voices as possible. Okay. So Gabby, if you can help me out here, I'm going to say the people's names, allow them to come off mute. Please say your name, say your question or your recommendation, and then go back on mute. And so I can move on to the next person. Okay, the first person that I see with a hand up is Vinod Chawla. Then I see Lydia. Third, I see Rhoda. We'll do that in that order. First, Vinod, Lydia, then Rhoda. Vinod, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
You have a question for us, Mr. Vinod?
Is regarding the blind and visually impaired people, how they will be helped. Like I normally go to the North Station commuter train station and I come by Red Line and change Orange Line to Orange Line at Downtown Crossing. So how I will be helped? Because I don't know, from the train station, being visually impaired, I will not be able to spot who is going to help me or not going to help me. And similarly, when coming back, how help will be given to the blind or visually impaired people?
Chief, I caught part of that. I didn't catch all of it. I don't know if you had a bit of a problem on that too.
At the beginning, I did. Mr. Vinod, you said that you are visually impaired, correct? I believe the question was, he gets off at Downtown Crossing to transfer to other lines. And what I think I heard is that the gentleman is visually impaired and he wants to know, what are we thinking about? How do we support folks who are transferring from one line to the Orange Line?
Yes, so our accessibility department has been in communication with local organizations that they've been working with in the past to ensure that our teams are adequately prepared to be able to handle this. So you know, I'm happy to take some of this feedback back to the team and get more details and some specificity. But my understanding is our system-wide accessibility team has been working diligently to ensure that we are prepared for this.
And I can also add, Chief, hi, it's Kristen McCosh, I'm the Disability Commissioner. Thank you very much for that question. And I want to let you know that our office is working diligently with the Office of System-Wide Access. We know there are particular challenges for people who are blind as far as wayfinding and accessible routes. So we're working really closely with the team to make sure that wayfinding is available, sighted guides will be available. So we definitely have people with visual impairments in mind. So we are working on it, and we look forward to getting your feedback. If you notice any difficulties at the beginning of the transition, please let us know.
And Chief, if I may, just to emphasize that this is going to be a bit of an involving process as we go throughout this diversion. There are a lot of lessons that we've taken from previous diversions in the past, and we will do our best to implement them here. And we will be working closely with the chief and the city of Boston to if there are gaps and we're able to fix them, that we're able to take action as quickly as possible within bounds.
Thank you, Angel. And Mr. Vinod, I'll make sure that somebody from our team connects directly with you to ensure that the information that has been shared today makes it to you in a way that makes sense to you. Let's go to Lydia and then Rhoda.
Hello, hi. My name's Lydia Deloney. I am one of the resident leaders here for WCWG apartments close to the Eggleston area and JP area. So my question is, well, I had two. The first one is, I'm a mother of a college student who takes both orange and green lines. So classes, she goes to BU. Classes at BU usually start around 7. What times are those shuttle buses going, the earliest they're going to be running? And are they going to be running by the hour or by like every 30 minutes? Is there a certain schedule? Only because I've heard that they're going to be running on like holiday schedules, and that was my first time hearing it. So when I saw this meeting, I was like, this is the perfect time to ask that question. And the other question is, as far as safety measures dealing with the whole COVID thing, are those shuttles going to be packed like the regular buses would, some standing and some sitting, or, you know, is there a limit on how many people can get on those shuttles?
Leah, thank you for those are really great questions. I'm going to do my best to tackle all of them. The first one is on the size of the shuttles and how many people are there. So these are coach buses, so there is it's no standing, as I've written them myself, particularly on the blue line closure that we had earlier this year. It is sit down only. So there is a cap or a limit of whatever, I think it's around 45-ish people that are available to be able to sit in those buses. The frequency of the buses is we've actually procured up to 200 of these coaches should they be needed. We believe that there will be about 160 at the height of the closure. And so we believe that depending on traffic, that there should be a bus coming through at a very frequent basis, not every 30 minutes. I think every couple of minutes you can expect a bus will roll up because of the sheer size of the diversion. Keep in mind that the buses are going to be the slowest way to be able to get to where you need to go. And I recognize that's not, you know, the answer that you might want to hear, but that is the reality. And then if you wouldn't mind, can you just repeat the other part of your question?
It was what's the earliest times these shuttles are going to start running?
Yeah, the shuttle buses are going to mimic the times and duration of when the Orange Line is in service. So from 5 a.m., you know, whenever the first train is 5 a.m. through when the Orange Line would normally close. It is intended to be the best of our ability, a replacement service for the Orange Line during the closure.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Angel. Let's do Rhoda Gibson, followed by Euro, Leon, and then Marie Turley.
Hi, this is Rhoda Gibson, and I have one statement, one question. First question is it possible for, I'm a wheelchair user, and in the previous times of was never really investigated. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Is there a way, when the last time that the Orange Line, we had to take shuttle buses, I think it was last year, and that I would get there and one of the buses, the lift wouldn't work and there was issues, so I waited, and it took me like 2 hours to get from Malden Center to somewhere near Wellington. So I was very upset over that, and I'm just concerned that if you are a wheelchair user and you need an accessible bus, is there a way you could schedule an appointment or schedule a time so that a bus will definitely be there for you, and or something? I will probably take the commuter rail since I live right in Malden Center. But if I have to take the shuttle, I'm just concerned about that. The second question is about the ride, of diverting people to the ride. The ride has a lot of issues, and lots of times they're late picking you up, they're late dropping you off, or not picking you up at all and forgetting you. So I'm just concerned by all of these people that have never taken the ride before, and they will start experiencing major issues that current ride users are having. So those are my two major statements, questions on.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rhoda. You know, we've, as I mentioned earlier, we've procured up to 200 buses. So if there is a particular issue with a bus, we will certainly do our best to make sure that that's replaced. If there is a particular issue with accessibility, highly recommend that you reach out to an ambassador that will be on hand at your particular station. And as you mentioned, you live out in Malden Center, I believe is what you said. Highly recommend that you take the bus, I'm sorry, the commuter rail in. That will be your fastest way to be able to commute into the city should you need to. And that the bus should be your last resort because it will be slower due to the traffic that will be, the increased traffic that we expect that we will see. With respect to the disability shuttles, these are on demand. And part of the reason for that is because it's difficult to schedule. We have, and I mean this sincerely, we really have gone and procured every available bus, accessible bus and van that we can for this particular diversion. And so we've gotten every asset that we possibly could get. And so we are, you know, we realize that this is a huge inconvenience, but we believe that in the long run, this is going to be in the best interest of riders of the Orange Line for the MBTA.
One more question, I'm sorry, real quickly. Will the commuter rail change its schedule and mimic the regular Orange Line schedule? Or because they don't come on, like it could be every hour or so now.
Yeah.
So will that be changed and updated so that there is a commuter rail train coming to Malden Center? You know, you don't have to wait a half an hour or an hour.
Yeah, the schedules are posted online on the rider guide. So I would encourage you to go to mbta.com to go look at that guide, to go look at the guide in the schedules that have been posted. Don't quote me on this, but I want to say that we are approximately on the north side looking at a train approximately every 40 minutes. And I understand that that's very frustrating for a lot of people. But part of the we've attempted to add more service, but we run into a few issues with respect to train traffic that goes through that area, because part of the line that goes through is a single track area. So we've run into some issues there. And it is my understanding that we've put out as many, if not all, of the assets that we possibly could in order to provide as much service as we possibly can. And again, we understand this is frustrating for a lot of people, but we believe that this is in the best interest of our riders and the MBTA in the long run. So we apologize for the inconvenience on that. And we thank you for your understanding.
Thank you, Angel. This reminds me of a question that came up earlier. If I attempt to get on a bus and the lift does not work for whatever the reason is there a way for, besides talking to a person in a red shirt at the train station, is there a way for me to report that to ensure that we're actually getting as quick of feedback as possible? What is the best way for me to report that beyond speaking to an ambassador in case there isn't one nearby?
A disability shuttle?
No, in one of the coach buses. I believe Rhoda mentioned that in the past, like a lift didn't work into the coach bus. What is the easiest way for folks to report that to ensure that that gets addressed as soon as possible?
Yeah, I would say go right to the ambassador, and if that's not working, or if the lift is not working, the operator of that vehicle should be reporting that in, and there should be some coordination that could happen as quickly as possible to bring in the necessary bus into the area.
Is this also an opportunity for me to potentially call the call center?
Yes, we encourage that. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I'm sorry, just one more question. Are the lifts, are the buses, the shuttle buses that you have now scheduled, are they in the back of the bus, and how many persons in wheelchairs can get on a shuttle bus? Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's a great question.
Apologize.
I do not know the answer to that, and we're happy to get back to the chief and her team and provide that information, but I do not have that off the top of my head.
Commissioner,
I can give a little bit. Yep, I have some of that information, Rhoda. And I know Rhoda very well. Please feel free to follow up with me at my office. But the majority of the shuttle buses will be the high shuttle buses with the lifts in the back. They are required to be ADA compliant, which means 2 wheelchairs will be secured in the back, but it depends on the sizes. We know some scooters and some wheelchairs are large. But my office is putting together a guide just for accessibility on the shuttles and during the diversion. So we'll spread that widely. Again, I encourage everybody to just send an email to disability@boston.gov. We'll sign you up for our newsletter, and then you'll get all these updates as they come in real time. As the chief said, we're going to be doing this daily. So we'll get the accessibility guide out, which has specific answers to all these questions, Rhoda. And we'll definitely keep the update.
Thank you so much.
No, of course. And just a reminder for the call center, the number is 617-222-3200. And you can use that number to call, ask questions once the shutdown actually begins. All right, let's just want to do a quick time check. So if we can keep our questions as brief as possible. And then at the end, I want to actually have a closeout for 5 minutes for a specific call to action that I have for folks. So let's do Mr. Person Leon and Marie Turley.
All right. Hi, thank you. Thank you for your work covering these gaps. My name is Euro Leon, and I'm here representing Boston Cyclists Union. So our group has identified 3 problem areas, and we have the following requests. First, the intersection of Columbus Avenue and Dartmouth Street will be a dangerous conflict zone, with buses turning right into the bike lane outbound and left across the bike lane headed to Copley. There must be signal changes and/or police detail to ensure cyclist safety at this intersection. Second, we request a parking ban on Columbus Avenue between Mass Ave and Clarendon Street, with pop-up bike lanes during the entire shutdown. Third, Martha Road and Lomasney Way between Craigie Bridge and Causeway Street need parking bans and bike lanes as well. Will you commit to addressing these issues?
I'm going to make sure that I stay connected with the MBTA on this, but Angel, I know you have somebody in your team here taking notes, just to make sure that when we have a follow-up, we can, one, discuss this further. I'm sure maybe this is not the first time you've heard this specific suggestion. And then, Euro Leon, I want to make sure that we do follow up with you, but right now we can now focus on commitments because we're trying to get this going as much as possible, but somebody is taking notes on this and we will follow up with you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Marie.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted.
You're good now.
Hello, can you hear me? So
yes.
First of all, I appreciate this call greatly. I'm going to sound really, many of you know me, like a pain in the butt in the beginning, and then I have constructive things at the end. I am stunned that the Orange Line closing is not what we were told it would be when we ripped off the bandage. We were told it would make the Orange Line stops, and it's not. You've made no changes since emergency shutdowns. I take this every day, took it all the way through being essential personnel. And so the idea that 3 or 4 essential stops are not accessible. I don't have a wheelchair, I'm very lucky, but I have a lot of mobility issues. On the route that was created for the emergencies, we made numerous suggestions and they clearly have been ignored. I cannot believe that you are going to bypass 4 major stops that are Orange Line connector stops for people. Hospitals, downtown crossing, small health related services. It needs to be addressed quickly. It cannot go forward. 2, green and Orange Line. I get ripping off the bandage. We'll get through a month on the Orange Line, but to stick back closing the green line because the MBTA can't keep a schedule, I'm really sorry, but that's not appropriate. I took that shuttle bus. It's a friggin' joke. And you need to talk to people who took it. I see already the Yankee buses going by saying Boston to New York, you know, and New York to New Jersey. These poor people are trying to learn the route and they don't even know where they're going. Talk to us. Let us make suggestions. Have an express bus. If we have, as a 73-year-old woman who goes on the Orange Line every day, regardless of how many days it takes me to get to work, your route now has me get on at Green Street, get off at Back Bay, walk to Copley Library, go downstairs if everything is working, and then get on the Green Line, get off at Government Center, go upstairs, get on a bus, and a lot of the Green Line buses, you can't walk up. I don't need a wheelchair, but I'm going to be riding a lift like somebody in a, you know, movie or something to get on it, because that's what happened during the emergency. You guys have twice done this, and it's like you didn't learn anything. Talk to us who take it. Have express buses, if you're going to do the Green Line shutdown, that run from Government Center to where you know, to the stops. So that if I get off now, and it's the same thing as you did the last time, you drop us off outside of North Station. Then you have to go down the stairs, walk through the tunnel, walk through the station, walk to the street to get a bus. There's so many other better ways. So number one, don't close the Green Line at the same time. People should not be rewarded for their bad behavior, that you were over a year and a quarter late with the Green Line, and now you're going to shut it for those of us who rely on both transfers, or at least talk to people and let us give you some ideas quickly before this nightmare starts. It's so hopeful that it was going to really be full Orange Line service, not a remake of a nightmare that we've lived through twice. This is like Elm Street goes again. And all kidding is, I tried to joke, but it didn't work because I really am not able to be a little humorous on this one. But just, you know, it's the same route. There are no changes. There's no adaptations. Those poor, if it weren't for those ambassadors, I don't know what we would have done. They need a union. And B, if you are going to go through with this, then talk to us. I'm happy to talk to anybody about some concrete ideas. I believe in the T. I'm willing to rip off the Band-Aid. I was willing to go through the torture of the Orange Line. I just can't believe that there's been no improvements in the plan, particularly given the amount of brain power, money, and I'm going to do my close off this way. This is my suggestion. During this, anyone who makes over 100 grand, anyone who has a parking spot or a T car and is not essential personnel has to throw their car keys and their parking spot pass into a big fishbowl, and only 10 of them at a time for a week or two at a time get their parking spot and car, and they have to take the train like the rest of us. It'd be fixed in a month. Trust me. Because if you had to take it, you wouldn't let it be like this. You'd fix it. And people like me want to see it work. So talk to us, please. Everybody knows how to find me who's on the WU team. And I work at the jail, so you can find me in jail every day, which I'm sure at this point people wish I were in. So I'm going to stop. But I have some real concerns. I have some hope, and I want to be helpful. I just really am so disappointed that these really smart people just Xerox something. It's really disappointing, and I just wish it would have been better. And I can't believe the Green Line is going on. Thank you very much. I appreciate the platform. I do have some concrete things to suggest, but I just am stunned at the Xeroxing of a plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mary. I certainly, certainly understand, as someone that rides the MBTA on a daily basis. I'm a Blue Line rider. The frustration that a lot of people share around this. We take what we do here very seriously. And you know, this is the type of feedback and constructive feedback that I think is really important for us to learn from. We understand that this isn't going to be easy, and it's going to be inconvenient for a lot of people. But we do think that the routes that we put together are going to provide the best possible direction for folks to be able to get where they need to go. We understand it's inconvenient, but we are doing the best that we can here to ensure that that happens. I will take that feedback back to the team. As I mentioned earlier, that this is also a learning opportunity for us. There could be potential changes down the road that could be made depending on what the situation is. And we really appreciate the honest feedback that you were just able to provide to us. So thank you for writing the T, and thank you for your feedback. It's much appreciated.
Thank you so much. I see 5 raised hands. I just want to be mindful of time. It is 8:10. And so we have Grace, Amy Locke, I hope I'm saying this right, May Johnson. Then we have Jessica, finally Brenda. After that, I'm going to ask for us to close out. Again, this is not the final conversation. This is just a quick, here's what's happening, here's what we need from you, and then to get your input and questions. So let's kick it off with Grace.
Thank you. I have a relative that has a medical appointment at Mass General next week. She lives in Brighton. Now, can she go to the Waltham station, get on the commuter rail, and go in for free?
The Waltham station, if it's zone 2, and I believe it is, just simply show your Charlie card, and at no extra charge, she'll be able to get into town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Let's go with Amy.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Why go through the charade of showing a Charlie card on the commuter rail? That seems it seems ridiculous if it doesn't have to have any money on it.
That's a good question. What I would tell you is we have an honor system here at the MBTA, and we think that this is the easiest way for folks who already have many people have Charlie cards, and they're easily accessible to be able to board the train and get to where they need to go.
But if it's free, that makes no sense. What you're saying makes no sense, because people who normally, that makes absolutely no sense that people have to show a card. If it's free, it's free.
Amy, I want to add, because this is something that actually our executive director of the Black Male Advancement Office raised a couple of days ago, weeks, I don't even know at this point when it happened, of why show it if it's going to be free. So we've been in communication, and just so you're aware, because I don't think we've brought this up, and if somebody can help me fill in the blanks here, we are, T stations will be supplied with extra Charlie cards to ensure that people, if you do not have one, you left it at home, whatever it is, there will be access to them there. I know our ONS team, as well as the Boston Transportation Department, has been in contact with different BCYF centers and libraries, if I'm not mistaken, if somebody can step in there to ensure that those different locations have access to these cards, so that people who may not have one can just pick one up. Because I hear the feedback there, and we just, again, from an equity perspective, we want to make sure that this has not become a problem. And so we're trying to fill in the gaps as much as possible to support the MBTA. But John, I see you come off camera. Can you maybe share what we're doing there to ensure Charlie cards are not a problem?
Absolutely. So we've been working with BTD, and Christy, if you want to jump in on this with it, BPL locations should all have Charlie cards to be able to be shared out. We're also happy to be able to connect with residents to see how we can maybe find spots, if there's suggestions on spots, to be able to make sure to bring those cards to as well. And then Christy, I think there's a few other spots that you might have suggested or might have said that we're going to have Charlie card locations at.
Yes, so we've been working with some of our partners across City Hall to get them to folks who need them. So both the Age Strong Commission and the Disabilities Commission have come by and picked up Charlie cards from us. So we have those available through their partnerships that they'll be helping to hand out. We're also working with BCYF, Boston Centers for Youth and Families, to try and get Charlie cards out through their networks. And then additionally, we have Charlie cards available at City Hall. If anyone wants to come say hi, love to give you a Charlie card. And finally, also we are working with some of our city councilor partners to get cards distributed as well. So Councilor Laura, who covers many of the commuter rail stations in the southwest portion of the city, her office came and picked up cards today, and they will be out and about near the stations during the shutdown to help hand out those Charlie cards as well.
Chief, if I may, just to kind of go on to the point about why we're using the Charlie cards here. The vast majority of the people that use the Orange Line either use a ticket, a Charlie ticket, or a Charlie card. And so in light of wanting to make it easier and more convenient, since we're adding additional service in the commuter rail, but we understand that it's not a one-for-one service replacement. We're basically asking folks that already have that Charlie card or want to have access to a Charlie card to just show that in the station. So, you know, the vast majority of the people that use the system, whether it's a bus or want to make a connection, use a Charlie card. We just thought it was, we think it's easier to be able to do that. In addition to that, we've been working really hard over the last few years to have partnerships with municipalities outside of the city of Boston to distribute Charlie cards. And we think that this could be a potential way of easing traffic for people that are coming into the city. So that is the reason why. The vast majority of people that use Charlie cards have money in them. And so that's part of the reason why we're encouraging folks to use those Charlie cards.
I don't think you answered her question, which was, why is it free? If it's free, why do we have to show anything?
It's so that you're showing so that you are showing that you're accessing the system. It's also a way to be able to collect some information on who's done it, on the amount of people that are coming into the train as well, so we can monitor that.
So they're going to be scanned?
No, there's usually someone that's there with that. It varies by the mode, but there's usually someone there doing a manual count as well. So there's different ways we can do that.
Can I ask for, and maybe Amy or Rhoda, there's two things I'm curious about. If you have an extra couple of minutes after 8:30, I actually would love to just hop on a phone call with you to better understand. I have my own theories. I want to better understand what the concerns are, but I do want to get to the other questions. So Amy and or Rhoda, if maybe you can if you can chat me privately your phone number, I will give you a phone call right after this to just get a sense of what the tension is there beyond what I'm thinking. Is that okay with you?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to May. Maya?
It's Mia.
Mia, thank you.
Mia, I'm the transit organizer for Action for Equity. It is an equity question, and I think that it is known that it's an equity question. Those who have the income to or access to a job that pays them to have access to a commuter pass, the discrepancy is about class, right? The discrepancy is about equity and who has it, and those people who are able to buy a weekly pass because that's what they're able to afford, right? There is a discrepancy, and there is a class discrepancy, and it leans into that. The visual statement of saying, who do we as the MBTA hold as valuable ridership, as opposed to looking at our full community of riders and addressing the concern that if we're going to say something is free, let it be free. No one should need to have to prove that they were riders before. They've been riders, they are riders. We're actually at a deficit getting people on because we're decreasing the amount of service and available service to our riders, particularly in EJ communities who, yes, we have the Fairmont Indigo line, which is great, but it's not at 15-minute intervals, right? It's at 45, which is way better than it was 30 years ago, 10 years ago, but it certainly isn't in the same vein as the Orange Line. The connector buses that will get to the Orange Line, but many of our riders are using as well to get downtown, are going to run into the same problem with traffic and getting from Forest Hills into the Back Bay area. Those are two different lines. So you're not talking about the same transit lines or the same fairways through. So I just, the transparency of what does that actually mean for riders, particularly riders that are Black and brown bodied, who are in our EJ communities, who are commuting because they've been pushed out and gentrified out into and having to work into the city or having to go through the city to go out to work. You know, like 40% of the residents in Everett leave the city of Everett to go to outside the city on commuter rail, but rely on getting on the Orange Line to make that transition from bus to train to commuter rail. That is those rides are drastically inhibited. So on both ends of the line, because of the amount of gentrification the city has experienced, because of the amount of housing shortage and crisis the city has experienced, the one thing that has been really essential has been transportation, and this upheaval and the lack of like really owning the fact that making this, I feel like the MBTA is digging in on semantics around having to show a Charlie card. Make it free, just make it free for a month. Make all of it free for 1 month, because then it will get done. Just say, you know what, and have transparency about the plan. To say, you know what, we're gonna back off of this, and we're gonna say that this is outrageous. We know that we fell short. We're sorry to our community. We wanna make it right. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this right so that we can actually have a good transit system, because people are using it, and we're walking into a transit time going into the fall that is critical. Not only is it critical for students, it's critical for families, and it's critical for the residents who live in the city year round, as well as the influx of students and other folks who are coming in for the temporary 9-month, 10-month cycle that they come in for. So just being really clear that like it is an equity issue, and the fact that the MBTA won't back off of it and just accept that that was a bad call, the optics were bad, and just own that and be like, you know what, we had bad optics. We didn't think that through, but we're okay with stepping back and being like, you know what, you're right. The writers are right. It's okay. It doesn't make us look bad. It makes us look like we understand and we're present with who's actually using our service every day, and they're paying for that service. So whether they have a Charlie card or not, they're using a weekly pass or they're paying as they get on. And that's the facts.
Thank you, Mia. I said earlier that I had theories as to what Amy was bringing up earlier. So thank you for sort of verbalizing what a lot of us are probably sitting with. In the meantime, please know that this is something that a lot of us do care about. So we will continue to have these conversations because we hear you, and a lot of us are very understanding of what you're saying. The ways in which we are addressing some of those like potential concerns that you name so well is to ensure that Charlie cards are available at the stations and are available in those spaces where community gather as much as possible. I see in the chat a couple people are saying, can we make these Charlie cards available to faith centers, et cetera? And like we actually have, and I believe Will Dickerson is here, who is our faith leaders liaison, who can also support in that transaction. So we want to make sure that Will Dickerson actually has access to these cards so that he can help in the distribution. My apologies to our ASL interpreter. I went really fast there. Okay,
if I may,
go ahead.
I just want to have a clarification for Lydia, because I think she asked a question about buses earlier in the frequency of them. You asked, I thought it was free already once the work started. That is referring to the shuttle buses. Just want to be clear. Shuttle buses are free of charge during the diversion. So Lydia, I want to make sure that there isn't any confusion there. And then just to clarify, as Mia had artfully articulated, to simply show your Charlie card when you're on any of our commuter rail lines up to Zone 2, or a Charlie ticket, and you'll be able to get into your ride. So the shuttle is itself free. There will be no Charlie cards being checked during those shuttles. It's the form of mitigation. And then if I may, Chief, as well, just emphasize on the ride piece that any trip originating within 3/4 of a mile of the Orange Line or the diversion route essentially is free of charge for the duration of the closure. So just wanted to make sure Lydia had that clarification.
Thank you, Angel. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Jessica, then Brenda.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a Boston Community Hub School Coordinator, and so I just had 2 questions. One is I wanted to know your communication with Boston Public Schools and transportation. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, 1 second.
That's
Can
already
you
much
hear me
better.
now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So as a Boston Community Hub School Coordinator, we know that school starts September 8th. I just wanted to know your communication with BPS, and are students going to be penalized if there are tardiness going into school, because we do know that there will be an overflow, as we already heard, into the commuter rails, as well as if we know they're not using Orange Line, they may be trickling into the buses or the Red Line, and just more traffic in the streets, especially with school buses. That is one. I do appreciate that Charlie cards will be accessible at many of our libraries, and so I'll be sharing that information with our school community. For those who aren't able to, whether they don't have access to a library or they're just not able to get to one soon, we do know that 7th graders and above do require to take the T. They don't any longer have access to a school bus unless you have a disability. And so for those students who've yet to receive a Charlie card, if they do try to get on one of the shuttles, or not the shuttles, but one of the transportations, commuter rail, will they be turned away if they don't have one at that time? I know that it's free, but will they be turned away if they don't have one at that moment?
Chief, I'm happy to answer that, and you can get into the BPS piece if you wouldn't mind. There will be, what I would say is, no one should be getting turned away, but I want to be careful about how I answer this. I want to emphasize that again, there is going to be T ambassadors at all of these stations. And if someone doesn't have a Charlie card, I would encourage someone to ask a T ambassador for a Charlie card or Charlie ticket. And there are going to be machines that are obviously going to be available where folks can simply, get a Charlie card there. But again, we are doing everything we can to maximize the exposure of these Charlie cards. And I've been in coordination with Chief Cervera and ONS on this. And I think today we provided a shipment of additional Charlie cards. We'll be doing the same going forward. And T ambassadors, again, should have Charlie cards with them. And if someone needs them, they should just go right up to them and they should be able to help them out.
Thank you, Angel. I'm gonna give ONS a couple of seconds, minute, whatever you have. Maybe if you can reiterate a little bit of what you said at the beginning about what the different liaisons are going to be doing in the next couple of days, to make sure that not only the Charlie cards, but just information is also out there. John, or if somebody else from ONS is here, that would be helpful right now before we close out.
Thank you so much for having us again. And I do want to tell you all, I apologize. Horrible doing two things at once. So as I'm looking at my notes, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to let me know. My email is john.romano@boston.gov. I'm the deputy director for our office. I'm happy to be able to help with some questions and be able to make sure people are getting connected to resources. That's a lot of what our team will be doing. Our team's main focus will be able to make sure that we are sharing out any information, new information, or the information that we've already talked about at this meeting, and the resources for people to be able to ride most effectively during this time with our networks. If you don't know how to get in touch with our office, you're not part of our email newsletters, you're not part of our network, I'm going to post that information in the chat here as well. But it's all on boston.gov on the neighborhood services page. What we also will be doing is, sorry, Chief, we'll also be at community meetings, and all the community meetings leading up sharing this information. We'll be present the first day of commuting. So Monday, August 22nd, we'll be out there. Our liaisons will be out there at a bunch of different stops to be able to help commuters. And then we'll also be able to help answer any questions or make sure people are getting connected to the right resources. Our teams will also be riding, walking, taking the shuttles, biking alongside you all. So we'll be happy to experience those things firsthand with you too.
Thank you, John. And Jessica, your question around BPS, we do not have all of the answers at the moment with BPS. This goes without saying. My understanding is that the last week of the shutdown will be the first week of school. And so we are trying to address sort of the first couple of days so that we can do lessons learned, quick feedback, and be able to implement and do better. Not we, the MBTA, with our support and push. And at the same time, if you missed this at the beginning, I said that BPS, in partnership with the police department, in partnership with BTD and a couple other people, are talking about what does that safety plan look like and that transportation plan look like. So yes, the conversations are happening. We do not have something to present to you right now, but if maybe there is somebody here from the BPS staff, my understanding is that there will be sessions hosted targeting families of BPS students as the day gets closer to the start date. So that is not a satisfactory answer, but know that the conversations are happening and that something will be presented with the different angles of around safety, around making sure that our kids are getting to school. And if they get to school late, that there is not going to be a form of consequence that it's going to harm the students' learning. So just want to name that, Jessica, for you. And my apologies if that's not sufficient. Brenda, let's close out with you. It is 8:30, so if you can make this quick, please.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you, Brenda.
I'm concerned also for the students because I do have a niece and a nephew, a few of them, that go to the Boston public schools. And if they are going to be expected to ride those bikes or whatever way they're going to get to and from school, we know it's going to be a mob and we know it's going to be hectic and it's going to be really dangerous if you're trying to get a student on a bike, without hopefully any mishaps. We look all the time and we hear all the time about, people on their bikes being hit, being killed. And that's just on a regular day without the Orange Line being shut down. So I did hear what you guys were saying just now about the safety of students, but it's very scary for, parents and the students themselves when they're trying to get to school on time.
Thank you for that, Brenda. Look, we certainly understand the massive inconvenience that this is going to cause for a lot of folks over here in the area and in the region. But I think as I mentioned earlier, this is what we believe to be in the best interest of the region in the long term, the best interest of the organization, and more importantly, the best interest of the riders going forward to make sure that we have a more reliable system. We understand this is going to be frustrating, and we are doing everything in our power to ensure that we are deploying every single one of our resources and that we're coordinating at every level of government. And the chief can allude to this. We're in constant, like minute by minute communication with almost every municipality in the area that's impacted by this. And we are throwing every asset, every idea that we can, and every brain power that we have to make sure that we are providing as efficient and as safe and reliable alternative, whatever that may be, throughout the duration of the closure. And again, we really do apologize for that convenience, and we certainly understand the frustration, but we do need to get this work done. And we've heard loud and clear from folks that it's time to really rip off the Band-Aid and do the work that's needed to make the type of system that I think our riders deserve. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you so much. If Carly, if you don't mind texting in the chat the question that you have. It's 8:33 and I want to make sure that the interpreters also get to have dinner. As questions were going on, I saw that different either elected officials came in or people from the staff of the elected officials were in. I saw staff from Councilor Lara's office. I saw staff from Councilor Flynn's office. I saw staff from Kenzie Bach. And I see or saw Councilor Anderson. If you're still on the call, I want to make sure I know that you texted something earlier around how people can communicate with you directly. Feel free to come off mute right now and say a few words before we close out, but I'm not sure if you already logged out of the call.
Can I ask a question, Gabby?
Mia, do you mind dropping the question in the chat? I just want to make sure.
I just wanted to confirm that the chat was going to be emailed to us.
Okay, so I don't think Counselor is on the calls right now. So what I'm going to say is we are going to save the chat, and the questions that were not addressed in this call, we will do our best to package them and, you know, get the right parties involved to get an answer for you. And that's why we asked you all to register ahead of time so that we can follow up with you with the actual answers. One question that I have for the team, and I see folks already leaving, please go have dinner. If there's any appetite for doing a follow-up call 2 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks from now, again, for the feedback purposes, what's going well, what's going terribly, and you know, and to make sure that we're continuing to implement that. If there is any interest in that, give me a thumbs up or just put it in the chat. If I see like 10 people showing interest, we'll make sure to coordinate a second one 2 to 3 weeks from now. I see 5, 6 people and me. Okay, we're at 10. We'll make sure to coordinate another one in 2.5 weeks from now, just to make sure that we're getting your input as the shutdown is happening. Because we heard you loud and clear. We want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if and when this happens again, we are getting your input as soon as possible. Thank you all. It is 8:36. Please go have dinner, dessert, whatever it is that you do at 8:36 on a weeknight. Thank you all again.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you. And as you're logging out, of course, as you're logging out, if you have Chinatown specific questions, don't forget that tomorrow there is an in-person meeting between the MBTA,